Book 6, Part 1 of Laws by Plato, translated by Benjamin Jowett. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Book 6. Athenian, and now having made an end of the preliminaries, we will proceed to the appointment of magistracies. Cleinias, very good. Athenian, in the ordering of a state there are two parts. First, the number of the magistracies and the mode of establishing them, and secondly, when they have been established, laws again will have to be provided for each of them, suitable in nature and number. But before electing the magistrates, let us stop a little and say a word in season about the election of them. Cleinias, what have you got to say? Athenian, this is what I have to say. Every one can see that although the work of legislation is a most important matter, yet if a well-ordered city superadd to good laws unsuitable offices, not only will there be no use in having the good laws, not only will they be ridiculous and useless, but the greatest political injury and evil will accrue from them. Cleinias, of course. Athenian, then now, my friend, let us observe what will happen in the constitution of our intended state. In the first place, you will acknowledge that those who are duly appointed to magisterial power and their families should severally have given satisfactory proof of what they are from youth upward until the time of election. In the next place, those who are to elect should have been trained in habits of law and be well educated, that they may have a right judgment and may be able to select or reject men whom they approve or disapprove, as they are worthy of either. But how can we imagine that those who are brought together for the first time, and are strangers to one another, and also uneducated, will avoid making mistakes in the choice of magistrates? Cleinias, impossible. Athenian, the matter is serious, and excuses will not serve the turn. I will tell you then what you and I will have to do, since you, as you tell me, with 9 others, have offered to settle the new state on behalf of the people of Crete, and I am to help you by the invention of the present romance. I certainly should not like to leave the tale wandering all over the world without a head. A headless monster is such a hideous thing. Cleinias, excellent, Stranger. Athenian, yes, and I will be as good as my word. Cleinias, let us by all means do as you propose. Athenian, that we will, by the grace of God, if old age will only permit us. Cleinias, but God will be gracious. Athenian, yes, and under his guidance let us consider a further point. Cleinias, what is it? Athenian, let us remember what a courageously mad and daring creation this our city is. Cleinias, what had you in your mind when you said that? Athenian, I had in my mind the free and easy manner in which we are ordaining that the inexperienced colonists should receive our laws. Now a man need not be very wise, Cleinias, in order to see that no one can easily receive laws at their first imposition. But if we could anyhow wait until those who have been imbued with them from childhood, and have been nurtured in them, and become habituated to them, take their part in the public elections of the state. I say, if this could be accomplished, and rightly accomplished, by any way or contrivance, then I think that there would be very little danger at the end of the time of a state thus trained not being permanent. Cleinias, a reasonable supposition. Athenian, then let us consider if we can find any way out of the difficulty. For I maintain, Cleinias, that the Cnosians, above all the other Cretans, should not be satisfied with barely discharging their duty to the colony, but they ought to take the utmost pains to establish the offices which are first created by them in the best and surest manner. Above all, this applies to the selection of the guardians of the law, who must be chosen first of all, and with the greatest care. The others are of less importance. CLEINIAS: What method can we devise of electing them? ATHENIAN: This will be the method: Sons of the Cretans, I shall say to them, inasmuch as the Cnosians have precedence over the other states, they should, in common with those who join this settlement, choose a body of 37 in all, 19 of them being taken from the settlers, and the remainder from the citizens of Knossos. Of these latter the Cnosians shall make a present to your colony, and you yourself shall be one of the 18, and shall become a citizen of the new state. And if you and they cannot be persuaded to go, the Cnosians may fairly use a little violence in order to make you. CLEINIAS: But why, Stranger, do not you and Megillus take a part in our new city? ATHENIAN: O Cleinias, Athens is proud, and Sparta too, and they are both a long way off; but you and likewise the other colonists are conveniently situated, as you describe. I have been speaking of the way in which the new citizens may be best managed under present circumstances. But in after ages, if the city continues to exist, let the election be on this wise: all who are horse or foot soldiers, or have seen military service at the proper ages when they were severally fitted for it (compare Aristotle's Politics), shall share in the election of magistrates, and the election shall be held in whatever temple the state deems most venerable, and every one shall carry his vote to the altar of the god, writing down on a tablet the name of the person for whom he votes, and his father's name, and his tribe and ward, and at the side he shall write his own name in like manner. Any one who pleases may take away any tablet which he does not think properly filled up, and exhibit it in the agora for a period of not less than 30 days. The tablets which are judged to be first, to the number of 300, shall be shown by the magistrates to the whole city, and the citizens shall in like manner select from these the candidates whom they prefer. And this second selection, to the number of 100, shall be again exhibited to the citizens. In the third, let any one who pleases select whom he pleases out of the 100, walking through the parts of victims, and let them choose for magistrates, and proclaim the 37 who have the greatest number of votes. But who, Cleinias and Megillus, will order for us in the colony all this matter of the magistrates and the scrutinies of them? If we reflect, we shall see that cities which are in process of construction like ours must have some such persons, who cannot possibly be elected before there are any magistrates, and yet they must be elected in some way, and they are not to be inferior men, but the best possible. For, as the proverb says, a good beginning is half the business, and to have begun well is praised by all, and in my opinion is a great deal more than half the business, and has never been praised by any one enough. CLEINIAS: That is very true. ATHENIAN: Then let us recognize the difficulty, and make clear to our own minds how the beginning is to be accomplished. There is only one proposal which I have to offer, and that is one which, under our circumstances, is both necessary and expedient. CLEINIAS: What is it? ATHENIAN: I maintain that this colony of ours has a father and mother who are no other than the colonizing state. Well, I know that many colonies have been, and will be, at enmity with their parents; but in early days the child, as in a family, loves and is beloved. Even if there come a time later when the tie is broken, still, while he is in want of education, he naturally loves his parents and is beloved by them, and flies to his relatives for protection, and finds in them his only natural allies in time of need. And this parental feeling already exists in the Cnosians, as is shown by their care of the new city, and there is a similar feeling on the part of the young city towards Knossos. And I repeat what I was saying, for there is no harm in repeating a good thing, that the Cnosians should take a common interest in all these matters, and choose, as far as they can, the eldest and best of the colonists, to the number of not less than 100, and let there be another 100 of the Cnosians themselves. These, I say, on their arrival should have a joint care that the magistrates should be appointed according to law, and that when they are appointed they should undergo a scrutiny. When this has been effected, the Cnosians shall return home, and the new city do the best she can for her own preservation and happiness. I would have the 37 now, and in all future time, chosen to fulfil the following duties. Let them in the first place be the guardians of the law, and secondly of the registers, in which each one registers before the magistrate the amount of his property, excepting 4 minae, which are allowed to citizens of the first class, 3 allowed to the second, 2 to the third, and a single mina to the fourth. And if any one, despising the laws for the sake of gain, be found to possess anything more which has not been registered, let all that he has in excess be confiscated, and let him be liable to a suit which shall be the reverse of honourable or fortunate. And let any one who will indict him on the charge of loving base gains, and proceed against him before the guardians of the law. And if he be cast, let him lose his share of the public possessions, and when there is any public distribution, let him have nothing but his original lot. And let him be written down a condemned man, as long as he lives, in some place in which any one who pleases can read about his offences. The guardian of the law shall not hold office longer than 20 years, and shall not be less than 50 years of age when he is elected; or if he is elected when he is 60 years of age, he shall hold office for 10 years only. And upon the same principle, he must not imagine that he will be permitted to hold such an important office as that of guardian of the laws after he is 70 years of age, if he live so long. These are the 3 first ordinances about the guardians of the law. As the work of legislation progresses, each law in turn will assign to them their further duties. And now we may proceed in order to speak of the election of other officers, for generals have to be elected, and these again must have their ministers, commanders, and colonels of horse, and commanders of brigades of foot, who would be more rightly called by their popular name of brigadiers. The guardians of the law shall propose as generals men who are natives of the city, and a selection from the candidates proposed shall be made by those who are or have been of the age for military service. And if one who is not proposed is thought by somebody to be better than one who is, let him name whom he prefers in the place of whom, and make oath that he is better, and propose him. And whichever of them is approved by vote shall be admitted to the final selection. And the 3 who have the greatest number of votes shall be appointed generals and superintendents of military affairs, after previously undergoing a scrutiny, like the guardians of the law. And let the generals thus elected propose 12 brigadiers, 1 for each tribe, and there shall be a right of counter proposal, as in the case of the generals, and the voting and decision shall take place in the same way. Until the Prytanes and council are elected, the guardians of the law shall convene the assembly in some holy spot which is suitable to the purpose, placing the hoplites by themselves, and the cavalry by themselves, and in a third division all the rest of the army. All are to vote for the generals and for the colonels of horse, but the brigadiers are to be voted for only by those who carry shields, that is, the hoplites. Let the body of cavalry choose phylarchs for the generals, but captains of light troops, or archers, or any other division of the army, shall be appointed by the generals for themselves. There only remains the appointment of officers of cavalry. These shall be proposed by the same persons who propose the generals, and the election and the counter proposal of other candidates shall be arranged in the same way as in the case of the generals, and let the cavalry vote and the infantry look on at the election. The two who have the greatest number of votes shall be the leaders of all the horse. Disputes about the voting may be raised once or twice, but if the dispute be raised a third time, the officers who preside at the several elections shall decide. The council shall consist of 30 by 12 members. 360 will be a convenient number for subdivision. If we divide the whole number into 4 parts of 90 each, we get 90 councillors for each class. First, all the citizens shall select candidates from the first class. They shall be compelled to vote, and if they do not, shall be duly fined. When the candidates have been selected, some one shall mark them down. This shall be the business of the first day. And on the following day candidates shall be selected from the second class in the same manner and under the same conditions as on the previous day. And on the third day a selection shall be made from the third class, at which every one may, if he likes, vote, and the 3 first classes shall be compelled to vote. But the fourth and lowest class shall be under no compulsion, and any member of this class who does not vote shall not be punished. On the fourth day candidates shall be selected from the fourth and smallest class. They shall be selected by all, but he who is of the fourth class shall suffer no penalty, nor he who is of the third, if he be not willing to vote, but he who is of the first or second class, if he does not vote, shall be punished. He who is of the second class shall pay a fine of triple the amount which was exacted at first, and he who is of the first class quadruple. On the fifth day the rulers shall bring out the names noted down for all the citizens to see, and every man shall choose out of them, under pain, if he do not, of suffering the first penalty. And when they have chosen 180 out of each of the classes, they shall choose one half of them by lot, who shall undergo a scrutiny. These are to form the council for the year. The mode of election which has been described is in a mean between monarchy and democracy, and such a mean the state ought always to observe, for servants and masters never can be friends, nor good and bad, merely because they are declared to have equal privileges. For to unequals equals become unequal, if they are not harmonized by measure, and both by reason of equality and by reason of inequality cities are filled with seditions. The old saying that equality makes friendship is happy and also true, but there is obscurity and confusion as to what sort of equality is meant. For there are 2 equalities which are called by the same name, but are in reality in many ways almost the opposite of one another. One of them may be introduced without difficulty by any state or any legislator in the distribution of honours. This is the rule of measure, weight, and number, which regulates and apportions them. But there is another equality of a better and higher kind, which is not so easily recognized. This is the judgment of Zeus. Among men it avails but little. That little, however, is the source of the greatest good to individuals and states, for it gives to the greater more, and to the inferior less, and in proportion to the nature of each, and above all greater honour always to the greater virtue, and to the less less, and to either in proportion to their respective measure of virtue and education. And this is justice, and is ever the true principle of states, at which we ought to aim, and according to this rule order the new city which is now being founded, and any other city which may be hereafter founded. To this the legislator should look, not to the interests of tyrants, one or more, or to the power of the people, but to justice always. which, as I was saying, is the distribution of natural equality among unequals in each case. But there are times at which every state is compelled to use the words just, equal, in a secondary sense, in the hope of escaping in some degree from factions. For equity and indulgence are infractions of the perfect and strict rule of justice, and this is the reason why we are obliged to use the equality of the lot, in order to avoid the discontent of the people. And so we invoke God and fortune in our prayers, and beg that they themselves will direct the lot with a view to supreme justice. And therefore, although we are compelled to use both equalities, we should use that into which the element of chance enters as seldom as possible. Thus, O my friends, and for the reasons given, should a state act which would endure and be saved. But as a ship sailing on the sea has to be watched night and day, in like manner a city also is sailing on a sea of politics, and is liable to all sorts of insidious assaults, and therefore from morning to night and from night to morning rulers must join hands with rulers, and watchers with watchers, receiving and giving up their trust in a perpetual succession. Now a multitude can never fulfil a duty of this sort with anything like energy. Moreover, the greater number of the senators will have to be left during the greater part of the year to order their concerns at their own homes. They will therefore have to be arranged in 12 portions, answering to the 12 months, and furnish guardians of the state, each portion for a single month. Their business is to be at hand and receive any foreigner or citizen who comes to them, whether to give information or to put one of those questions to which, when asked by other cities, a city should give an answer, and to which, if she asked them herself, she should receive an answer. Or again, when there is a likelihood of internal commotions, which are always liable to happen in some form or other, they will, if they can prevent their occurring, or if they have already occurred, will lose no time in making them known to this city, and healing the evil. Wherefore also this which is the presiding body of the state ought always to have the control of their assemblies and of the dissolutions of them, ordinary as well as extraordinary. All this is to be ordered by the 12th part of the council, which is always to keep watch together with the other officers of the state during one portion of the year, and to rest during the remaining 11 portions. Thus will the city be fairly ordered. And now who is to have the superintendence of the country, and what shall be the arrangement, seeing that the whole city and the entire country have been both of them divided into 12 portions? Ought there not to be appointed superintendents of the streets of the city, and of the houses and buildings and harbours, and the agora and fountains and sacred domains and temples and the like? Cleinias, to be sure there ought. ATHENIAN: Let us assume then that there ought to be servants of the temples, and priests and priestesses. There must also be superintendents of roads and buildings, who will have a care of men, that they may do no harm, and also of beasts, both within the enclosure and in the suburbs. 3 kinds of officers will thus have to be appointed, in order that the city may be suitably provided according to her needs. Those who have the care of the city shall be called wardens of the city, and those who have the care of the agora shall be called wardens of the agora, and those who have the care of the temple shall be called priests. Those who hold hereditary offices as priests or priestesses shall not be disturbed. But if there be few or none such as is probable at the foundation of a new city, priests and priestesses shall be appointed to be servants of the gods who have no servants. Some of our officers shall be elected, and others appointed by lot, those who are of the people and those who are not of the people, mingling in a friendly manner in every place and city, that the state may be as far as possible of one mind. The officers of the temple shall be appointed by lot. In this way their election will be committed to God, that he may do what is agreeable to him. And he who obtains a lot shall undergo a scrutiny, first as to whether he is sound of body and of legitimate birth, and in the second place in order to show that he is of a perfectly pure family, not stained with homicide or any similar impiety in his own person, and also that his father and mother have led a similar unstained life. Now the laws about all divine things should be brought from Delphi, and interpreters appointed, under whose direction they should be used. The tenure of the priesthood should always be for a year and no longer, and he who will duly execute the sacred office according to the laws of religion must be not less than 60 years of age. The laws shall be the same about priestesses. As for the interpreters, they shall be appointed thus: let the 12 tribes be distributed into groups of 4, and let each group select 4, one out of each tribe within the group 3 times, and let the 3 who have the greatest number of votes out of the 12 appointed by each group, after undergoing a scrutiny, 9 in all, be sent to Delphi, in order that the God may return one out of each triad. Their age shall be the same as that of the priests, and the scrutiny of them shall be conducted in the same manner. Let them be interpreters for life, and when any one dies, let the 4 tribes select another from the tribe of the deceased. Moreover, besides priests and interpreters, there must be treasurers, who will take charge of the property of the several temples and of the sacred domains, and shall have authority over the produce and the letting of them. And 3 of them shall be chosen from the highest classes for the greater temples, and 2 for the lesser, and 1 for the least of all. The manner of their election and the scrutiny of them shall be the same as that of the generals. This shall be the order of the temples. Let everything have a guard as far as possible. Let the defence of the city be committed to the generals and taxiarchs and hipparchs and phylarchs and praetanes and the wardens of the city and of the agora, when the election of them has been completed. The defence of the country shall be provided for as follows: the entire land has been already distributed into 12 as nearly as possible equal parts, and let the tribe allotted to a division provide annually for it 5 wardens of the country and commanders of the watch, and let each body of 5 have the power of selecting 12 others out of the youth of their own tribe. These shall be not less than 25 years of age, and not more than 30, and let there be allotted to them severally every month the various districts, in order that they may all acquire knowledge and experience of the whole country. The term of service for commanders and for watchers shall continue during 2 years. After having had their stations allotted to them, they will go from place to place in regular order, making their round from left to right as their commanders direct them. When I speak of going to the right, I mean that they are to go to the east. And at the commencement of the 2nd year, in order that as many as possible of the guards may not only get a knowledge of the country at any one season of the year, but may also have experience of the manner in which different places are affected at different seasons of the year, their then commanders shall lead them again towards the left, from place to place in succession, until they have completed the 2nd year. In the 3rd year, other wardens of the country shall be chosen, and commanders of the watch, 5 for each division, who are to be the superintendents of the bands of 12. While on service at each station, their attention shall be directed to the following points. In the first place, they shall see that the country is well protected against enemies. They shall trench and dig wherever this is required. As far as they can, they shall by fortifications keep off the evil disposed, in order to prevent them from doing any harm to the country or the property. They shall use the beasts of burden and the labourers whom they find on the spot. These will be their instruments, whom they will superintend, taking them as far as possible at the times when they are not engaged in their regular business. They shall make every part of the country inaccessible to enemies, and as accessible as possible to friends. Compare Aristotle's Politics. There shall be ways for man and beasts of burden, and for cattle, and they shall take care to have them always as smooth as they can, and shall provide against the rains doing harm instead of good to the land when they come down from the mountains into the hollow dells, and shall keep in the overflow by the help of works and ditches, in order that the valleys, receiving and drinking up the rain from heaven, and providing fountains and streams in the fields and regions which lie underneath, may furnish even to the dry places plenty of good water. The fountains of water, whether of rivers or of springs, shall be ornamented with plantations and buildings for beauty, and let them bring together the streams in subterraneous channels, and make all things plenteous. And if there be a sacred grove or dedicated precinct in the neighbourhood, they shall conduct the water to the actual temples of the Gods, and so beautify them at all seasons of the year. Everywhere in such places the youth shall make gymnasia for themselves, and warm baths for the aged, placing by them abundance of dry wood for the benefit of those labouring under disease. There the weary frame of the rustic, worn with toil, will receive kindly welcome, far better than he would at the hands of a not over wise doctor. The building of these and the like works will be useful and ornamental. They will provide a pleasing amusement, but they will be a serious employment too, for the 60 wardens will have to guard their several divisions, not only with a view to enemies, but also with an eye to professing friends. When a quarrel arises among neighbours or citizens, and any one, whether slave or freeman, wrongs another, let the 5 wardens decide small matters on their own authority; but where the charge against another relates to greater matters, the 17, composed of the 5s and 12s, shall determine any charges which one man brings against another, not involving more than 3 minae. Every judge and magistrate shall be liable to give an account of his conduct in office, except those who, like kings, have the final decision. Moreover, as regards the aforesaid wardens of the country, if they do any wrong to those of whom they have the care, whether by imposing upon them unequal tasks, or by taking the produce of the soil or implements of husbandry without their consent, also if they receive anything in the way of a bribe, or decide suits unjustly, or if they yield to the influences of flattery, let them be publicly dishonoured. And in regard to any other wrong which they do to the inhabitants of the country, if the question be of a mina, let them submit to the decision of the villagers in the neighbourhood. But in suits of greater amount, or in case of lesser, if they refuse to submit, trusting that their monthly removal into another part of the country will enable them to escape, in such cases the injured party may bring his suit in the common court, and if he obtain a verdict, he may exact from the defendant who refused to submit a double penalty. The wardens and the overseers of the country, while on their 2 years' service, shall have common meals at their several stations, and shall all live together; and he who is absent from the common meal, or sleeps out, if only for 1 day or night, unless by order of his commanders, or by reason of absolute necessity, if the 5 denounce him and inscribe his name in the agora as not having kept his guard, let him be deemed to have betrayed the city as far as lay in his power, and let him be disgraced and beaten with impunity by any one who meets him and is willing to punish him. If any of the commanders is guilty of such an irregularity, the whole company of 60 shall see to it; and he who is cognizant of the offence, and does not bring the offender to trial, shall be amenable to the same laws as the younger offender himself, and shall pay a heavier fine, and be incapable of ever commanding the young. The guardians of the law are to be careful inspectors of these matters, and shall either prevent or punish offenders. Every man should remember the universal rule, that he who is not a good servant will not be a good master. A man should pride himself more upon serving well than upon commanding well. First, upon serving the laws, which is also the service of the Gods; in the second place, upon having served ancient and honourable men in the days of his youth. Furthermore, during the 2 years in which any one is a warden of the country, his daily food ought to be of a simple and humble kind. When the 12 have been chosen, let them and the 5 meet together, and determine that they will be their own servants, and, like servants, will not have other slaves and servants for their own use, neither will they use those of the villagers and husbandmen for their private advantage, but for the public service only. And in general they should make up their minds to live independently by themselves, servants of each other and of themselves. Further, at all seasons of the year, summer and winter alike, let them be under arms, and survey minutely the whole country. Thus they will at once keep guard, and at the same time acquire a perfect knowledge of every locality. There can be no more important kind of information than the exact knowledge of a man's own country, and for this, as well as for more general reasons of pleasure and advantage, hunting with dogs and other kinds of sports should be pursued by the young. The service to whom this is committed may be called the secret police, or wardens of the country. The name does not much signify, but every one who has the safety of the state at heart will use his utmost diligence in this service. End of Book 6, Part 1.